Welcome back, everybody. Today we are going behind the scenes of, well, I guess you could say a true Hollywood classic.
Spartacus.
That's right, Spartacus.
Now just imagine yourself being on this movie set,
Okay.
and the director
Oh,
gets fired
hey.
just 2 weeks into filming.
Wow, that's
I
crazy.
know, right?
So what happened?
Well, this kind of chaos,
Yeah.
it wasn't actually that unusual for Spartacus.
Oh, really?
No, this 1960 epic,
Yeah,
the one starring Kirk Douglas,
of
was
course.
just this whirlwind of clashing visions,
Oh, wow.
big personalities, and
Yeah.
then you had the whole shadow of the Red Scare hanging over everything.
It's like a Hollywood drama, but happening both on and off screen.
Right.
Well, we are so lucky to have you here today.
Oh, thank you.
You're a film historian,
Yes.
and you've spent years
How many years?
unraveling this tangled story
Oh, it's quite a tangled story.
of this cinematic masterpiece.
Indeed.
So get ready, folks, because we've got some juicy behind-the-scenes drama coming your way.
Absolutely. And what I think is even more interesting is how Spartacus, it's a film about slavery and rebellion, but it really reflects, I think, the anxieties
Oh, interesting.
and societal shifts of 1950s America.
Okay, well, let's start at the beginning then.
Sure.
What was it that sparked Kirk Douglas's interest in Spartacus?
It seems like it was a missed opportunity.
Really?
Yeah, that really fueled his ambition.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Well, Douglas, he was actually initially in the running for the lead role in Ben-Hur,
Oh, well.
but lost out to Charlton Heston.
Oh, yeah.
And this fueled his desire to find another big epic project.
Just he wanted something equally grand.
Yes, exactly. And that's where Spartacus came in, which is based on Howard Fast's novel.
Okay, so Spartacus was his way of making a statement.
Exactly.
But wasn't there already another Spartacus film in production at that time?
There was.
Oh, wow, so there was competition.
Yes, starring Yul Brynner. Wow.
And this created a sense of urgency for Douglas.
Oh, I can imagine.
It became this race to get his version out first.
Oh, wow. That must have been intense.
You can imagine the pressure.
Oh, absolutely. And on top of that, you've got the Red Scare happening at the same time.
Yes, that's right.
So it must have added another layer of complexity to this whole production.
Absolutely. And the screenwriter, Dalton Trumbo, who they brought on board for the project,
Right.
he was actually blacklisted at the time.
Oh, wow. So they had a blacklisted writer working on this huge Hollywood epic.
Yes, and the fact that the film even got made with a blacklisted writer
Right.
is a testament to Douglas's determination, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
It also really speaks to the shifting political landscape of Hollywood.
Right. So we've got this backdrop of Cold War tensions,
Yes.
rivalry with another Spartacus film,
Yes.
a blacklisted writer.
Hmm?
What could possibly go wrong?
Right. Well, you can imagine things got pretty complicated.
I bet.
And one of the biggest challenges during production.
Yep. Was this constant clash
Mhm.
over how Spartacus should be portrayed.
Okay, I've heard about this.
Yeah.
Tell me more about these conflicting visions of Spartacus.
So Trumbo, after viewing an early cut of the film, was horrified.
Oh, no, why? What was so bad about it?
He felt like it lacked a clear vision for the character. And he identified two competing narratives,
Okay.
large Spartacus and small Spartacus.
Large Spartacus and small Spartacus. I like that.
Yeah, so large Spartacus was this noble, selfless leader.
Okay, the hero.
Yes, fighting for a grand cause. He represented freedom and justice.
Got it. And what about small Spartacus?
Well, small Spartacus was more self-serving,
Okay.
more focused on personal gain than the greater good.
Ah, I see. So two very different interpretations.
Exactly. And Trumbo felt the early cut was this jumbled mess of these two versions.
So it was all over the place.
Yeah.
So what did he do about it?
Well, he took action.
Good for him.
He wrote an impassioned 80-page report.
80 pages.
Wow. Advocating for a coherent, large Spartacus narrative.
So he really wanted to make Spartacus a symbol of hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
Symbol of hope and inspiration.
Wow, 80 pages. That's dedication.
Yeah, he really was passionate about it.
Well, did this report have any impact?
It did. It actually led to reshoots.
Oh, wow. So they actually went back and filmed new scenes.
Yes, they aimed to solidify Spartacus's image as this noble leader.
So they listened to him.
They did, although it's been said they ended up with more of a medium Spartacus.
A medium Spartacus. Now that's interesting.
Right. Somewhere between the two extremes.
Makes you wonder about the real Spartacus,
Yes.
Was he this noble leader or was there more to the story?
That's a great question, and it leads us to a fascinating discussion about the historical Spartacus.
Let's get into it.
What we know about him is largely filtered through Roman sources,
Okay.
written centuries after the actual events.
So we're dealing with biased accounts,
Exactly.
potentially even propaganda.
It's like trying to piece together a puzzle
Mm-hmm.
with missing pieces.
Okay. And some that might not even belong.
Right. So how do we even begin to understand who the real Spartacus was?
Well, we have to read between the lines and consider the motivations of those who wrote about him.
It's like a historical detective game.
Exactly.
All right, so putting on our detective hats,
Yes.
what do we know for sure about the real Spartacus?
Well, we know he was a Thracian gladiator
Okay.
who led a slave revolt against Rome in 73 BC.
So he was a real person
Yes, a historical figure.
who actually led a rebellion.
That's right, a very significant one.
Wow. And what else do we know about him?
Well, we know he was a skilled military leader.
Oh, so he wasn't just some random guy who got lucky.
No, he was very capable.
Interesting.
He kept the rebellion going for 2 years.
2 years.
Yes, and inflicted several defeats on Roman armies.
He defeated the Romans.
Multiple times.
Wow. That takes serious tactical brilliance.
You bet.
I bet that made the Romans pretty nervous.
Oh, you bet they were terrified.
They must have been like, how do we stop this guy? Right. He was a real threat to their power.
So even the Romans had to acknowledge his skills.
They did. And you know what's interesting?
What's that?
Some accounts, even Roman ones, portray Spartacus as surprisingly noble and courageous.
He had qualities that even his enemies admired.
It seems so.
That's fascinating.
Right. He wasn't just a brute force leading a chaotic rabble.
There was more to him.
There was a depth to his character that's often overlooked.
So this complexity, this mix of ruthlessness and, something resembling nobility.
Yes.
It adds to his enduring mystique, doesn't it?
It does.
It's probably one of the reasons why his story continues to fascinate us today.
Absolutely. I think it's that blend of strength and compassion.
It makes you think about the challenges of leadership,
Yes.
especially in a situation like Spartacus's.
Right.
Leading a slave revolt can't be easy.
You're telling me.
I mean, can you imagine?
It's hard enough to lead a small group of people.
Right.
But imagine trying to maintain unity and order amongst tens of thousands of escaped slaves.
Yeah, each with their own backgrounds, their own goals, their own grievances.
Absolutely. It must have been like herding cats, but with life or death stakes.
That's a great way to put it.
Right. It's important to remember that Spartacus wasn't just some lone wolf fighting for freedom.
Right. He had people to lead.
He did. And he had to deal with internal conflicts and divisions within his ranks, too.
So even though he was this charismatic leader, he still had to contend with human nature.
Oh, absolutely. That's the reality of leadership.
It makes this story even more compelling, doesn't it?
It does.
Because it's real.
It is. And it brings us to another intriguing aspect of Spartacus's story.
Okay, I'm listening.
The women in his life.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued.
This is where it gets interesting.
Tell me more.
So Plutarch, our main source for the Spartacus story, mentions that he had a wife.
Wait a minute. The gladiator rebel leader had a wife.
He did.
That's amazing. I never knew that.
It's a detail that's often overlooked.
But her story must be fascinating.
Yeah, it is. But unfortunately, it's also shrouded in mystery.
Oh, come on.
We don't even know her name.
That's so tantalizing. What do we know about her?
Well, Plutarch describes her as a prophetess who foresaw Spartacus's destiny.
A prophetess. That's incredible.
It is, right?
Wow. So she knew he was going to be a great leader even before he did.
It seems that way.
That's amazing.
He even tells a story about a snake crawling on Spartacus's face while he slept.
A snake crawling on his face. That sounds like something straight out of a myth.
It does, doesn't it?
Wow. And she interpreted this as a sign of his future greatness.
That's what Plutarch tells us.
It makes you wonder, did she play a role in shaping Spartacus's ambition?
That's a great question.
Did her belief in the prophecy push him to become the leader he ultimately was?
It's certainly possible, right? It suggests that even the most powerful figures are influenced by those around them.
It's a reminder that we're all connected.
We are, and even though we know so little about her,
Yeah, it's frustrating.
Spartacus's wife adds another dimension to the story.
She does.
She represents the human element, the personal connections that drive even the grandest of historical events.
I love that. And speaking of grand historical events,
Yes.
let's talk about the film's epic portrayal of the final battle.
Oh, yes, the final battle.
It's a cinematic masterpiece.
It truly is a visually stunning sequence.
But did you know
What's that?
that the final battle scene
Yes.
was actually a late addition?
Oh, really?
It wasn't originally in the script.
No way.
No, I'm serious.
Who pushed for it to be included?
None other than Stanley Kubrick.
Kubrick.
Yeah,
But he wasn't the original director.
you're right, he wasn't.
Yeah.
He took over as director just 2 weeks into filming.
Can you imagine stepping onto a set
Yeah.
with a film already in production,
Right.
making such a drastic change?
It's bold.
It's a testament to Kubrick's vision and determination.
He must have been so sure of himself.
He felt a film of this scale
Right.
needed a climactic battle scene.
And of course, he was right.
He was right.
It's one of the most memorable scenes in cinematic history.
It's iconic.
It takes your breath away.
Absolutely. But it wasn't an easy decision.
Oh, I bet not. I mean, logistically, that must have been a nightmare.
It was Kubrick's vision for this massive battle scene clashed with the initial idea.
Oh, what was the initial idea?
Well, they wanted to emphasize Spartacus's strategic brilliance over brute
Oh,
force.
so more of a thinking man's battle.
Exactly. They had even considered representing the final battle symbolically rather than showing it directly.
Oh, wow. So a more subtle approach.
Right. But Kubrick, he argued for spectacle.
And thank goodness he did.
I agree.
Now, we can't talk about Spartacus without discussing the most iconic scene,
Oh, yes.
the I am Spartacus moment.
Ah, yes, the scene that embodies solidarity and self-sacrifice.
Right? It's become a cultural touchstone,
It has.
referenced and parodied countless times.
I can't even count how many times I've seen it referenced.
What makes it so powerful, do you think?
Well, for me, it's the simplicity of those words, I am Spartacus, repeated by so many voices. It's a testament to the strength found in unity.
Especially in the face of oppression. It's a
Exactly.
powerful message about collective resistance.
It really is.
Yeah.
But interestingly, there's some debate about who actually came up with the idea for that scene.
Really? I always thought it was Kirk Douglas's idea.
He certainly claimed credit for it.
Right.
However, it seems to have been more of a collaboration between Douglas and screenwriter Dalton Trumbo.
Ah, so the blacklisted writer might have had a hand in one of the most iconic scenes in cinema history.
That's the irony, isn't it?
It is.
Even though Trumbo was officially shunned by Hollywood,
Right.
his words and ideas helped shape this masterpiece.
And even Stanley Kubrick,
Yes.
who wasn't initially keen on the scene, ultimately went along with it.
He did, and thank goodness he did. I'm Spartacus has become one of those cinematic moments that transcends the film itself.
Right. It's more than just a scene in a movie.
Exactly. It speaks to our human desire for connection, for standing together against injustice.
It's incredible to think that a story from ancient Rome can still resonate so deeply with audiences today.
It really is, and it brings us to a fascinating question.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Why does the story of Spartacus, both the film and the historical figure, continue to captivate us?
Right. What about his story is so enduring?
I think part of it is the leadership aspect.
The leadership.
Yeah, both the historical figure and the film's character.
Okay.
They embody this struggle to lead and inspire
Right.
in these extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah, you mentioned that even the real Spartacus
Mhm.
faced internal conflicts
Oh, yeah.
within his ranks.
Big time.
That's got to be a huge challenge,
It is.
especially when you're trying to lead a rebellion
Mhm.
against,
The mightiest empire.
the mightiest empire the world had ever seen.
Right.
I mean, how do you even begin to
Well,
manage that?
well, the film actually portrays this really well.
Oh, does it?
Yeah, we see Spartacus not just as a warrior,
Okay.
but as a mediator, trying to keep his followers united
Mhm.
despite their different backgrounds and goals.
It makes leadership seem less about, giving those rousing speeches
Right.
and more about understanding people's needs.
Yes.
And finding ways to work together.
Exactly.
That's a lesson that resonates today,
Absolutely.
just as much as it did back then.
It's timeless,
Yeah.
in any field,
Mhm.
whether it's business or politics or even just organizing like a community event.
Right.
Effective leadership
Yeah.
requires empathy, understanding, and the ability to navigate those complex social dynamics.
Right. It's about people.
It is, and Spartacus gives us a window into those timeless challenges.
And it's not like Spartacus was born a leader, was he?
No, not at all.
I mean, from what I understand, he was a gladiator
Right.
forced into this life of violence.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly he's thrust into this role
Right.
of leading this massive slave revolt.
Yeah, talk about a career change.
I know, right?
It's a classic hero's journey, isn't it?
It is. He's pushed to his limits
Right.
and discovers strengths he never knew he had.
Exactly.
It makes you think about how adversity
Mm-hmm.
can reveal hidden potential
Oh, absolutely.
in all of us.
I think we all have that potential within us.
Right. And it reminds us that leadership
Mm.
isn't necessarily an innate
See,
quality.
it's not something you're born with.
Right. It can be learned, developed, honed
Through experience.
through challenging experiences.
Exactly, just like Spartacus did.
Which brings us back to the historical Spartacus.
Yeah.
We may never know
Right.
the full extent of his leadership abilities,
That's true.
but to achieve what he did,
Mm-hmm.
uniting those diverse groups of people,
Yeah.
challenging Rome's power,
It's incredible.
it's simply extraordinary.
It really is.
Even though his rebellion ultimately failed,
It did.
its impact echoed throughout history.
It did. It really set a precedent.
And Spartacus became a symbol
Right.
of resistance
Yes.
against oppression,
Mm-hmm.
inspiring countless others.
Countless others to fight for freedom and justice.
It's amazing how a figure from ancient history
Right.
can still hold such symbolic power centuries later.
It's the universality of his struggle, I think.
Universality.
His fight for a better world against seemingly impossible odds.
It's a story that resonates.
It does.
And speaking of contrasting figures,
Yes.
the film does a great job of showing
Mm-hmm.
the differences between Spartacus's leadership style and that of his Roman adversaries,
Right.
like Crassus.
That's an insightful observation.
So you have Spartacus, a leader who emerges
Mhm.
from the ranks of the oppressed,
From the bottom up.
right? His authority is built on shared ideals,
Shared ideals.
trust, and the willingness to fight alongside his followers.
He's right there on the front lines with them.
He's a leader who inspires by example
Yes.
through his courage and his unwavering belief in their cause.
Exactly. Now contrast that with the Roman leadership,
Okay.
embodied by figures like Crassus and Gracchus.
Right.
Their authority is derived from their social status,
Okay.
their wealth, their control over the Roman military.
It's a more traditional top-down style of leadership.
Very hierarchical.
Right. Very hierarchical.
Precisely. And the film highlights the tension between these two opposing forces, these two different visions for how the world should be structured.
It makes you question
It does.
the very nature of power and authority.
Absolutely. What makes a good leader? Where does that authority come from?
Right. And what's interesting is that the film doesn't shy away
It doesn't.
from showing the flaws of the Roman leadership.
No, they're not perfect.
Right. The Romans are portrayed as powerful,
Mm-hmm.
but also deeply flawed.
Oh, yeah.
Their reliance on slavery,
Right.
their internal power struggles, their decadence and corruption.
It's all fair.
All these factors contribute to their vulnerability.
They do.
It's almost like they create the conditions for Spartacus's rebellion to thrive.
You could say that they sow the seeds of their own destruction.
Right? It's a reminder that empires, even the most powerful ones,
Right.
can be brought down by their own internal weaknesses.
Absolutely. History is full of examples of that.
And that brings us to another important theme in Spartacus,
Okay.
the role of women.
The role of women, yes.
It's easy to focus on the male figures
It is.
in this story,
Right.
but the women were just as affected by these events, weren't they?
Oh, absolutely. We often overlook their stories.
Yeah, we do.
But Spartacus provides a unique opportunity
Okay.
to examine how women navigated a world defined by patriarchal power structures
Right.
and the brutality of slavery.
The sources might be limited,
They are.
but we know that women were actively involved
Oh, yes.
in the rebellion. Right.
Absolutely. And not just as followers, but as fighters and strategists.
Wow.
Think about it. Spartacus wasn't just leading men. He was leading a diverse group that included women who were just as determined to fight for their freedom.
It makes you think about those challenges of leadership we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Spartacus had to unite men and women
Right.
from different backgrounds,
Yeah.
all fighting for a common goal.
It's a testament to his ability to connect with people.
And the contributions of those women,
Yes.
though often unsung,
They are often forgotten.
were crucial to the rebellion's success,
Absolutely. They were essential.
at least for a time.
Right.
And even though the film doesn't always give
Yeah.
the female characters the depth they deserve,
Right. They could have been fleshed out more.
there were still moments that capture their strength and resilience.
Oh, absolutely.
You're thinking of the scene
Yes.
where the slave women arm themselves and fight alongside the men
Right.
to defend their camp.
That's the one. It's a powerful image of defiance.
It is.
It shows that even within a system designed to oppress them,
Right.
women found ways to resist.
And fight for their freedom.
Exactly. It's a testament to the human spirit.
It's a reminder that the story of Spartacus
Yes.
isn't just about one man leading a rebellion.
No, it's bigger than that.
It's about a collective struggle, a fight for freedom, that involved men and women from all walks of life.
It's a story about humanity.
Right. Their individual acts of courage,
Mm.
those small acts of resistance,
Yeah,
had a ripple effect shaping the course of history.
absolutely. And speaking of influential women,
Yes.
we can't forget the mysterious figure of Spartacus's wife.
Right. The woman shrouded in mystery.
Even though we know so little about her,
Yeah.
she adds another layer of intrigue to the Spartacus story.
I'm still fascinated by the fact that Plutarch describes her as a prophetess,
I know, right?
that she saw Spartacus's destiny long before he did.
It's a detail that adds a touch of myth and legend to the story.
It does.
It makes you wonder if her belief in him, her conviction in his destiny,
Mhm.
played a role in shaping his ambitions.
It makes you realize that even the most powerful figures are shaped by the people they love
Right.
and the beliefs they hold dear.
And it highlights the often invisible influence of women in shaping historical events.
It's a reminder that history is not just a collection of names and dates,
It's not.
but a tapestry woven from countless individual stories,
Yes.
many of which remain hidden from view.
Lost time.
And speaking of historical legacies,
Yes.
it's incredible how the impact of Spartacus continues to be felt today.
It's true. Spartacus isn't just a film. It's become a cultural phenomenon.
Phenomena.
The themes of rebellion, freedom, and resistance against oppression,
Mm-hmm.
they continue to resonate with audiences around the world. It's remarkable, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, think about how many times that I Am Spartacus scene has been parodied or referenced in other films, TV shows, even political speeches.
Right, it's everywhere. It's a testament to the scene's power, its ability to capture that spirit of unity and defiance in the face of injustice.
But Spartacus is more than just a pop culture reference.
Yeah.
You know, it sparks conversations about social justice, political activism,
Right.
the fight for equality, issues that are just as relevant today as they were in ancient Rome.
Absolutely. That's what's so fascinating about this story. It transcends its historical context. Think about how many contemporary movements have drawn inspiration from Spartacus,
I know, it's amazing.
a figure who lived over 2,000 years ago.
It speaks to the universality of his struggle, the timeless nature of the human desire for freedom and dignity.
It's a story that continues to resonate.
And it's interesting how the film itself, a product of 1950s Hollywood,
Right.
reflects the anxieties of that era.
Yes, it does.
You mentioned the Red Scare earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on how this fear of communism shaped the film's production and maybe even its message?
Well, the Red Scare had a chilling effect on Hollywood, as you know.
Mhm.
Many talented individuals like Dalton Trumbo
Right.
were blacklisted, their careers destroyed simply for their political beliefs.
This is a dark time.
It was, and the fact that Spartacus got made with a blacklisted writer is remarkable.
It's almost an act of defiance in itself.
You could say that. And some argue that the film's themes of rebellion and fighting against oppression resonated even more powerfully.
Because of the political climate.
Exactly, because of what was happening in the world at that time.
So Spartacus wasn't just a historical epic. It was a reflection of contemporary anxieties.
It was a reflection of its time.
A coded message about the importance of standing up for what you believe in.
Exactly, and that's one of the things that makes the Spartacus legacy so compelling. Each generation reinterprets the story, finding new meanings and connections to their own struggles.
It's a reminder that stories, even those based on historical events, are living things.
They evolve.
They evolve and adapt, speaking to different audiences across time.
And as we've seen, the story of Spartacus continues to resonate powerfully in the 21st century. It challenges us to think critically about power structures, to question authority, and to fight for a more just and equitable world.
It's inspiring to think that a figure from ancient history can still speak to us so directly.
Right. Encouraging us to find our own forms of resistance, our own ways to make a difference.
And on that note, I'd like to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay.
If Spartacus teaches us anything,
Yes.
it's that even seemingly powerless individuals can spark change.
They can.
What seemingly impossible dream will you fight for, knowing that even in defeat, your struggle might inspire generations to come? Something to ponder.
Absolutely.
And for our listeners who want to delve deeper into this incredible story,
Yes.
we encourage you to check out the film Spartacus and explore some of the historical sources we've mentioned. Plutarch's Lives is a great starting point.
And remember, this deep dive is just the beginning. There's a world of fascinating stories out there waiting to be discovered. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.